Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well. I'm just going to get into a better position, so just bear with me. I'm going to stay with my video off for a little while until I find somewhere, and then I'll put it on just so you can see that it's me that's talking. There's been some events today which has changed things a little bit, so I'm not going to be able to give all of the evidence that I would have liked to, because I'll explain why in a minute when I can get somewhere. But so basically I'm just going to go through some of the information that I can remember that I disclosed last night on a TikTok live, that seems to have triggered them trying to find me today, which I'll tell you about in a minute. So it's changed, unfortunately, what I'm able to say this evening on this live, because I haven't been able to, I've had to change locations because of what happened earlier today. So just bear with me, but it's proving either they are trying to make it seem that I'm someone, and what I mean by that is someone within the criminal system is manipulating the records to try and make it seem as though I'm someone, or I am actually somebody more significant than I can really comprehend in all of this. But I've got to be very, very careful about being obviously given false information or following a trail of evidence that's been set in the wrong direction. I really need to make sure I'm aiming for truth in all of this, but with the evidence that I've acquired, it cannot be ignored. It's quite significant, which I'll go into in a little bit, you know, I've just got to be careful that I don't end up falling into the wrong trap by people within the system. And key to all of this is the Albert Pike letter to Mazzini. It really is key, and I've come across more evidence today in relation to that, and how that also is linking into my ring from the research and other evidence from other areas as well. It really is so important in all of this. And just to recap, the Albert Pike letter appears to have been written by Albert Pike, high-level occultist Freemason, in 1870 to a Mazzini, who was the head of the Illuminati, setting out the Three World War deception. Now I'm pretty sure that that is going to be the case, you know, because this goes back to the Reformation. There's loads of evidence to support that that is true, and that the three world wars, so the first two obviously, and I think what we're going through now is probably the Third World War element of this, is a collaborative international effort going back, right back to the Reformation, when it started to be planned, I suspect, leading into an infiltration of the Vatican. And the Albert Pike letter talks about bringing about the light of Lucifer. It talks about taking over the world, and ultimately bringing about the light of Lucifer. Now there's speculation within the evidence that I'm acquiring linking in with the Illuminati that the bloodlines are potentially mixed with the original name, whatever the name of Jesus was, and his brother Lucifer. So it seems as though there's like a split between good and evil at the moment. We're literally potentially right on the verge of determining whether we end leading into you know, a very dark time on Earth, or we bring about an amazing, incredible Earth for the future generations, which I can't see any reason, providing people get behind the right individuals and the right evidence and then the right strategy based on that evidence, that we cannot achieve almost the heaven on earth. And if you don't want to call it heaven on earth, let's just say paradise for practically everyone. So there's no disparity between rich and poor, equality, no matter what people's skin color are, no matter what faith they may have, what they may want to believe. The whole system has been corrupted by the money system that's in place, and how that appears to be linking in with the blood of the children and even going into vampirism. And I don't say that lightly, okay, and it actually is becoming more and more relevant. Again, a little bit of evidence that I found today is supporting that connection again into vampire. When I say vampirism, I'm not necessarily talking about people with fangs and, you know, capes, etc. But it does look as though this is, I mean, it's obvious this is an element in the system they've got in place, and it seems to be one of the main motives for the whole system they've got in place to be able to launder the money in relation to the children and how that relates to the blood. And I suspect the fact that the blood has been able to be used along with organ harvesting to be able to extend certain individuals' lives potentially significantly. And I think that's a huge element of this, where you've got a select few running the system, and potentially those there are potentially people above them that are actually trying to lead towards a falsified prophecy, which again the evidence links that into the Mazzini Albert Pike letter, because the Albert Pike letter ties immediately into the earthquake technology, or apparent earthquake technology, which gives the ability to falsify a tribulation period on earth, if that's true. Now they're actually telling us they have that technology. If you just go and research CMS, Charlie Mike Sierra, if you put CMS CERN, okay, you will see an article on the CERN website, official website as far as I'm aware, and it talks about having technology already that is able to produce electromagnetic fields 100,000 times more powerful than the entire Earth's magnetic fields. Now obviously if that's true, and they're telling us it is, then why would they even need technology that powerful? Okay, and there was only one reason, isn't there, and that's to cause significant problems on Earth, or even lead to a point of singularity as an inversion against creation. Now I am mindful that that information may have been planted and may be false for a particular individuals or group of people to believe that creation is all at risk, is at risk in all of this. But we cannot ignore that evidence, and we cannot ignore how that is tying into earthquakes that have happened around the world and earthquake technology that appears to be tying into the collider side of things. So, you know, we can't ignore that. We just cannot ignore that. And it is going hand in hand, it seems, with the blood of the children, and the fraud is what ties it all together. Okay, so, and it, of course, it links to the Vatican. So then if when you research all of those things and you look at it, obviously you've got to start thinking of the falsified prophecies and the tribulation period, which involves earthquakes, tsunamis, etc., and how that is linking in with the fraud. Right, I've just found somebody somewhere, so I'm just going to sit down. Right, hi everyone, sorry about that. So I haven't got the evidence in front of me to be able to talk about tonight, but I'm just as best as I can from memory. But what I'll do is I'll tell you a little bit about what happened earlier. So last night, just a quick, sorry, those of you who don't know me, I'm Gary Waterman. I'm a former UK police constable. I'm just going to get rid of PC the return. I think we've established that you're compromised, haven't we? Oh no, okay. So my apologies if you're not. So last night I went on a live stream on TikTok, and there was apparently around 200 people continuously through the whole live. I think it was about 3 hours, 4 hours, I can't remember. I finished up about 1 or 2 in the morning. And in that live stream I was talking about some of the things I'm going to be mentioning tonight, particularly my ring, and how my ring, and I'm just going to show it to you so you can see it. If I can get it off, my fingers are swollen a little bit, I think, where I'm walking and getting warm. Oh, bear with me. So this is the ring. I don't know where you're going to see it. So it's supposedly it's an M. The M becomes relevant because it's the 13th letter alphabet, and this links with the Knights Templar according to the research. Now this is only speculative what I'm telling you this part, okay, I can't confirm this, but what I can tell you is the evidence being supported through the Company's House records. So where is it? So M is the 13th letter. Apparently on the 13th, Friday the 13th, sometime in 1307, the last what they call Grand Master of the Knights Templar was arrested. Now inside there's some, you're not going to be able to see it, but there's some lettering inside. I think it's H, G and S. You're not going to be able to see it, it's so tiny. But I've got photographs and a document of it. They're on the inside ring. There's one there. I think that's the HGS one. I can't even see it with my eyes at the moment. And then there's another inscription there, which is 9C and then an underscore T. Anyway, the apparently this Knights Templar was arrested via an entrapment arranged with the Pope of the Vatican, and he ended up being tortured, according to the information, again, I can't tell you how I don't know this is true, this is just information that I've got, was tortured for 7 years and refused to disclose information, apparently about a hidden bloodline where Christ and Mary Magdalene had a baby. Anyway, they ended up apparently unaliving him by roasting him over a fire, and it's the 13th of Friday the 13th, apparently, in that year is when this happened. Now, apparently, the bloodline may have been taken, along with the bones of Mary Magdalene and Jesus, by the Knights Templar and went underground after the Vatican tried to remove all of the Knights Templar to potentially hide a hidden information about the bloodline of Christ. And there's information that suggests they might have gone to America, and they were the first to fly the bones, skull and crossbones, apparently one of the first, and the skull and crossbones potentially represented the bones of Jesus and Mary Magdalene that they may have had with them. Anyway, there's hooked X's that appear to have been left, according to the research. Now, look, I'm only telling you, I said to you, I can't confirm any of this is true. It may have been positioned as false information, but what I can tell you is what the company's house records say in relation to all of this and how it relates. Apparently there was a hooked X, an X with a little bit coming off of it that represented Jesus, or whatever his real name was, Mary Magdalene, and then the hook representing the baby that they had together. And this hooked X, according to other people, has been left in various locations around the world, and they've been authenticated, apparently, specifically in the Roslin Chapel, which becomes very relevant to me in all of this. Anyway, I explained a lot of this and a lot more last night, and then today I thought I'd go for a walk. Came out of this junction off, it was like a footpath, it wasn't near the roads or anything. As I came out of the junction, a guy was coming up from the left hand side with a dog. He looked uneasy. I turned right, so he's behind me at this point. He suddenly just gets his phone out, starts getting on his phone. I'm thinking, okay, maybe it's just a coincidence. He's got an RNLI top on, okay, which is the Royal National Lifeboat Institute, which will be linked to the Freemasons. And in fact, the RNLI main office or building is in Dorset, where I am connected to, okay, or in Poole near Bournemouth. Anyway, I thought, right, I'm going to turn off here and see what he does. So I walked off to the right, went and sat down on a bench. He came up, so he got field of sight of me, suddenly stopped, went round this little bit, changed directions, and then was going on his phone again and was looking over at me discreetly. He didn't realise I was watching him. So every now and then I was sort of being really cautious watching him. You could see him looking at me as he was getting on his phone, trying to do something. And I thought, okay, this is a little bit odd now. And I thought, I'm going to video him. So I ended up pointing my video at this building, my camera at this building, and getting him on the video and also taking photographs of him. So I've now publicised that photograph on all of my social media posts. And then as I walked off, so he's, if you like, away over the opposite side of me, probably not seeing that I'm actually watching him. Obviously, he saw me doing the video and he didn't move. And then I walked off, okay, in the same direction that I was heading, and he followed me. Now, it wasn't immediately. I kept looking back, and he was following me on his phone again. So I'm almost certain that he was positioned to find me. And now the timing of that, I don't think is a coincidence. Last night, I'm talking about my potential links into the bloodline in all of this, tying in with Rome, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And then suddenly there's this person that is too suspicious. And don't forget, I was in the police for 18 years, and I'm very in tune with my, I won't say sixth sense, but, my suspicions in this. And I have to be very cautious and suspicious of everybody. And it was just too obvious to me. It was too obvious in the way he was acting, etc. So anyway, I've submitted a police report today to the Metropolitan Police, and I thought, right, I'm going to literally tell them what I think based on my evidence. And I've asked them to provide an email, which they won't, to provide me with an email so I can send them the document showing all of the evidence that I've got, including what appears to be making my references now to the potential bloodline of Christ. I can't ignore that evidence. It's pretty huge, and I'm going to go through the evidence from the ring in a minute. So anyway, I've submitted this police report to the Metropolitan Police. It's got a reference number. I've now publicised that police report and that reference number on all of my social media accounts. Okay, so this will hopefully provide me with a bit of an element of protection in case he was sent to get people to come to my location and unalive me. I don't know what they'll do if they get to me. I really don't know whether I'm at risk or not. I would think I possibly am based on what's happened previously. So anyway, I've submitted this police report and I've mentioned in there evidence. I've even put remarkably significant evidence now suggests I'm potentially linking in with a very important bloodline in all of this. I need to send you the evidence and send you an email. I also mentioned, obviously, the very briefly, which they're already aware of because I've sent a lot of it anyway, but I just reiterated the evidence that I've got in relation to the collider technology. I mentioned the cell towers that I suspect they're using to make humanity ill, okay, so that they get people to go into the hospitals and the healthcare system that's been set up specifically around this international government fraud and the blood, and then through the healthcare system that gives them the ability to take the blood from the humans and use it into the harvesting of the blood. It's a huge element in all of this, and we're going to cover some of that a bit later and how this links in with, believe it or not, Varney the vampire, what's her name, Mary Shelley, and it links in with Bournemouth again in all of this. The Lord of the Rings we're going to be talking about and all sorts. It's just unbelievable. So I've now submitted that police report. Whether that's going to protect me or not, I don't know. I ask all of you to send the video and the picture of that person everywhere, please, all right, because what this will do is prevent anyone else that thinks they're going to be trying to be part of this to locate me, to potentially unalive me. They may think twice about being part of it if they know there's a chance that their photograph will be circulated linking to them to the crimes against children. So what we need to do is try and eliminate any risk to me, really, so that I can continue the exposure and work out a strategy how we can move forward in all of this. So let's talk about the ring. So if we go back a little bit, first of all, now I haven't got any of this information in front of me, so I'm saying this from my memory, so bear with me, all right? So if we go back to 1968, according to the information, Pope John Paul I died after being in his position as the Pope for 33 days, okay? And then he suddenly died, and apparently there's very suspicious information around his death. Looks like it's murder. That's the information. Now that information was given to me over the last few days. It could have been false information they've staged to try and scare me, to stop me coming forward saying I'm linked to the Vatican to stand up against the entire world system, because they were claiming that this Pope was trying to do exactly that and ended up being murdered. Okay, so he died in 1978. I think, let me just check think of the dates. Hold on a second. Hold on, 79, 60, oh my goodness, on 78, yeah, it was 78. Now let's go back a little bit. Let's go back to 1968. In 1968, according to the research, there starts to be a bit of a conflict within the Vatican, okay, between those that want to modernize the church and potentially remove moral conscience as the foundation, and the Freemasons were involved in this, according to the research, and they appeared to want to move towards a more modernization of the church and be quite sort of scientific based, which obviously then starts linking with CERN. Okay, and this becomes really important because it wasn't long after that, and I can't remember the date, that the organisation linking in with the Italian government and science was then founded, and that links directly into CERN and the collider technology, which then ties into the risk of the falsified tribulation and even the end of all of creation, according to the research. So this was all going on in 1968. 1969, Charles is then made the Prince of Wales. Okay, so he was obviously initiated to become the Prince of Wales in 1958, a few years earlier. This is the same year that NASA was formed, okay, one letter short of an anagram of Satan. In 1969, he became the Prince of Wales, and that is when NASA was involved in supposedly the first moon landing. I don't believe that was true at all. I don't think we've ever been into space. I honestly now think it's all a lie, okay? And there's more evidence that I've acquired tying into this discrepancy, or they call it a schism. Is it a schism? Where there's a conflict between two groups? Schism? I don't know. Anyway, there's a word that it means. And I've got evidence tying that into the conflict, if you like, within the Vatican, into the start of significant organisations that were beginning around the exploration of space. Now, if you think about it, science separates us from the creator, I believe, okay? Because what science is, and I'm going to try and say this in the best way possible, it's a quest for knowledge, because we're not accepting the knowledge of nature and of creation as it is, and we're looking for answers that are potentially already provided through our own creator and through nature. And this is a very dangerous path, because that leads us into a continuation for a thirst of knowledge, and to never stop until we get conclusive, what scientists will claim is conclusive proof of something that creation can't explain. Now, ultimately, that will lead to I believe, the end of all of creation. I think this is where the collider technology is coming in with this. Anyway, 1969, Charles becomes the Prince of Wales. In 1970, I'll go back. Shall I go back to 1977? Yeah, it's right. Remember, 1970, I'll just mention this first of all. The year afterwards, you have somebody within the Vatican called Marcel Lefebvre, and he ends up creating an organisation called St. Puris, P-U-I-S, I'm probably saying it wrong, Puris, oh, my video's gone, St. Puris X, okay, St. Puris X. Now, I suspect that X relates to the bloodline of Christ, okay, because, and we're going to come to the X, remember we've mentioned the crossed X, the hook X already, and how that linked back into the Knights Templar. The Knights Templar logo was a red cross, okay, also potentially representing the X or the bloodline of Christ. This ties in with, it was an inversion of the Swiss flag, okay, but the Knights Templar started using that back in 1147, okay, and it links in with the Red Cross, okay, who used the same, almost the same identical symbol, and the Red Cross was originally founded in, I can't remember the date, it was 1864, I think, and that links into Geneva in Switzerland. So in 1970, this organisation is set up by somebody linked to the Vatican called Marcel Lefebvre. Now, he was opposing Freemasonry. He was against Freemasonry, and he was trying to prevent the modernization of the Vatican, which would connect into the leading into science technology that could end all of creation, which of course will involve artificial intelligence as well as CERN and this other evidence and information I'm telling you about. Now, Lefebvre, in 1977, he went with, according to the information, why is there a voice? I thought it was coming from my phone for a minute. In 1977, he went with Princess, can't remember her surname, one of the head of the black nobility families of the Vatican in 1977, and they went to Switzerland. And the information suggests that he was courting somebody within that group, okay? And he went to Switzerland. 1977 is the year that I was born, okay? The Albert Pike letter written to Mazzini was removed from the British Museum library on the year I was born as well. Okay, now this all ties into what I'm telling you about, the Albert Pike letter written to Mazzini, tying back into 1971 when it was written, and the infiltration of the Vatican of 1970, the year before. Anyway, he was courting, so we have to consider that they left the Vatican to potentially continue a bloodline, of a hidden bloodline they knew about that was being hidden within the Vatican, okay? Tying in with the bloodline of Christ. We have to consider that based on that information. This then links into information. There's a church in, I can't remember the church, in France, where a particular priest was overseeing that parish and that church, and he would not leave that parish, to the point where he ended up getting penalised for refusing to leave it, and he was receiving no money as being a priest for being overseeing this church in France. Now, speculation has it that within the vault of that church, he found parchments that supported the existence of the bloodline of Christ. And what was I going to say about that? This is what led to the book, first of all, The Da Vinci Code, which came out, I think, in 2003, followed by the movie, that came out in 2006, which is the year that I moved from Kent to Dorset, not knowing anyone at all. And then the second movie was released, called Angels and Demons, the year I became a became a director of Expo Manor, and that was about the Vatican and the CERN Large Hadron Collider. No coincidence, everybody. Within 2 weeks, they then created the Royal Foundation of the Prince and Princess of Wales, with me becoming the a director of Expo Manor. Okay, within 2 weeks. That organisation is what links practically all areas of the research to the fraud, into the Royal Foundation of the Prince and Princess of Wales. That incorporation document of that company links to my upbringing. Okay, via a company called Ingenious Film Partners 2, which is on page 40 of that incorporation document, and one of my friend's wives links immediately to Ingenious Film Partners 2. Okay, on that incorporation document, there is also a monks organisation connecting into the evidence that I've got in relation to the Iona prophecy and the end of the world. My friend's wife that I was growing up with, my best friend was one of my childhood friends, and the wife he ended up marrying had the surname of Lee. Okay, Lee is the same surname as the Cray twins, and my family ended up was associating with the Cray twins before I was born. Okay, it looks like they were involved in the infiltration of the royal family, according to all of the research. Emma Ayling is her name now, her married name. This is my friend's wife. She also connects to a ministerial company immediately in Wimborne. Okay, Wimborne is where Deborah Fleming had lived, that initiated my removal from Expo Manor when my investigation began in 2022. Okay, the creator of the World Wide Web, Tim Berners-Lee, also lived in Wimborne, according to the research, the same town where the Flemings lived. He created the World Wide Web for CERN, okay, and he created it in 1989. Prior to that, he had worked at CERN in 1980. This is the same year that the Georgia Guidestones were erected that represent an upcoming man-made apocalypse, okay, that were erected in Geneva. An organisation tying to that linked straight to the immediate, through the Company's House records, to Madeleine McCann. Immediately on the incorporation document, you have the London Law Agency. The London Law Agency is on the incorporation. It connects to Madeleine's fund, leaving no stone unturned, where she went missing on the 3rd of May 2007. The same year that I was introduced as a staged introduction by, I suspect, people linking with the Knights Templar to my wife and to Expo Manor. Okay, all tying in with CERN, tying in with the international government fraud. It was staged. Madeleine McCann went missing that same year, 3rd of May 2007. And then it was August 2007 is when the Expo Manor Freehold Limited, the company where my investigation began, was actually incorporated. The two people that were involved in that, one of them was Diana Betts, links to the blood. She is a phlebotomist for the NHS. The other person, well, there's other people on there, but these are the main two. One of them is no longer with us. The other one is Anthony de Rea. Anthony de Rea links to the Vatican via the research. Okay, his company, his family name connects to the Doomsday Cult. It connects to the Vatican via, I established that via the research of the death of Jill Dando. Okay, I followed the trail of evidence through the Company's House records, linking it in with the other evidence I'd already acquired, assist me, and it led me to a de Rea company connected on an incorporation document that is linked directly to the Vatican in a massive way. Not only is it linked to the Vatican, it is linked to the finances of the Vatican and how those finances tie in with the world wars, which means it links back in to the Albert Pike letter written to Mazzini, setting out the 3 World War deception back in 1871, linking back in with the Vatican again. So, bear with me for a sec. Sorry about that. Okay, so someone's saying, get to the tent. Why? Is there something you know about that, PC Waterman? Something you know at my tent, is there? Yeah, need to expect something when I go there, do I? Expect you're compromised. Anyway, so Deborah Fleming is the person that initiated my removal. I'm trying to where was I going? Hold on, let me make sure I don't lose track of this. So I've mentioned that. Okay, let's talk about the Doomsday Cult a little bit in this and how this ties in with everything. Well, first of all, you've got the Doomsday Clock. That began in 1947, okay, which is the year that several important things happened, such as the commercially microwaves became available. Okay, I'm just going to remove you, PC Waterman. I don't trust you. So the I think something's been set up at my tent, guys. To be honest with you, based on what he just said, I thought he was compromised. So anyway, I'll carry on. So there's an article, okay, that talks about first of all, Doomsday Clock began in 1947. That is very key in relation to a lot of the timing and everything. The year afterwards, you have the Israel-Arab War. That's the same time that they create the Association of Chief Police Officers of the United Kingdom, and that's the same year, at the same time that they also created the NHS. Everybody, okay? The Association of Chief Police Officers of the United Kingdom connects to my introduction to my wife in 2007. That was by a person called. Got to get rid of Teddy. That was created. The Association of Chief Police Officers of the United Kingdom was founded in 1947, and the person that introduced me to Exbourne Manor was a guy called Jock Condon. Within the Association of Chief Police Officers, you have Paul Condon. Okay, Paul Condon was a Metropolitan Chief Commissioner. He's linked to BAE Systems, and he's also connected to Group 4 Security, which ties straight into Exbourne Manor, where my investigation began. He was also the Chief Constable of Kent when I was living in Kent. All right, he then moved to and became the Chief Commissioner for the Metropolitan Police. So 1947, the Doomsday Clock began, which is a visual representation of a doomsday situation here on Earth. Not necessarily the end of the world, okay? It could be just a countdown to a new beginning of truth or transparency in all of this. But there's an article regarding the family, okay, which is a doomsday cult in Australia. And thanks, Truth Teller. I don't know what to do. I don't know what's going to be there when I get to my tent now. You might not hear it again. I don't know. So if you don't, then you know why. So anyway, the Julian Assange, there's an article that came out regarding the family, which was a doomsday cult in Australia. When you read the article of that, it talks about drugging children. It talks about swapping babies around in hospitals. Okay, so they take the babies and swap them around with the mothers, okay, to hide true identities presumably, and stop bloodlines being connected, etc. And it talks about the drugging of the children, but also in there it talks about having this organization, the family, being linked to fraud, millions of pounds worth of fraud, and having property in Kent. Okay, now Kent, we can assume it doesn't say in England, but it says Kent. It also mentions somewhere in America having property. Kent is where I was born, and I've already linked all three of my families to Julian Assange via the research. When you come in from the Association of Chief Police Officers of the United Kingdom, it links to Julian Assange via the research. Okay, his father is called John Shipton. There's a company name record for John Shipton on Companies House that connects immediately to my father-in-law's financial advisor. Immediately. Okay, you go one or two companies away, there's Deborah Fleming. You go another company away, or two companies, there is what's his name, David Sidgwick, who is the Police and Crime Commissioner for Dorset. The Police and Crime Commissioners were set up in 2012, the same year that CERN claims to have discovered the Higgs boson, a God particle. They connect to Jimmy Savile and into the collider technology. I've already confirmed that, okay, which links in with the earthquakes, okay. Yeah, I don't know what to do, Gillian. I'll be thinking about that. I'll think about that later, about whether I go back to the tent and what I do. However, this doomsday cult connects to me. Okay, it connects to me, all three of my families via Julian Assange. It also links to, as I've said, the Police and Crime Commissioners, but also the Association of Police and Crime, the Association of Police and Crime Commissioners, and the Association of Chief Police Officers of the United Kingdom that started in 1948. And it connects to what I was going to say. There was something I was going to mention there. Robert Maxwell also links to that organisation. Okay, so this ties in Robert Maxwell and Ghislaine Maxwell now into this doomsday cult as well via the research. Anyway, I'm trying to remember all of this, guys. So let's talk about my ring. So my ring, I'll tell you about how I acquired it. Now, as I started my investigation for 2022, just prior to that, we had been traveling for a while. My wife and I, it was an organised arrangement. Okay, I didn't know, but it was a staged relationship arranged, as I said, originally in 2007. So we were traveling, started in 2014, and we were traveling on and off until I went back to the police in 2017. And where was I going to go with that? Yeah. Now, the reason we came back from traveling is we had a fire in the motorhome. Okay, there was a fire in the engine compartment when we were going up a hill from Austria into Germany, and that stranded us in Austria. We had to get a hire car, and the day that we left with the hire car, I had a message saying that the tenants for our property at Exbourne Manor were leaving and vacating the property. I now believe this was staged. Okay, it was the exact same day that we were leaving, and we had nowhere to live, you see, because we were living in our motorhome at this point. We were traveling for quite a while. I took 3.5 years off from the police. So we ended up then going to my wife's nan and granddad's, which is in Bournemouth, okay, on Keith Road in Bournemouth, which is near Glenfiness Avenue. It's in the Talbot Heath area of Bournemouth, very nice area. And we ended up staying with them for a while. And whilst we were living there, her granddad, who I now don't believe is her real grandparents, okay? There's a reason I say that. I've got information suggesting it wasn't really my wife's grandparents, which means they had been acting and staging that for a very long time, okay? Ever since I'd been with my wife, okay, in 2007. Anyway, we were at the property, and they're obviously getting on a little bit now, and we started to... we were looking after them, you know, and Barry became very, very ill. This is my wife's grandfather, supposedly. He started becoming ill, and I was thinking, wow, this is just divine intervention. The fact that they're getting ill, and we're here to be able to look after them. So we were looking after them. We were doing a lot of gardening, and we also ended up going to a church quite a bit that they went to in Westbourne. Okay, I didn't know this church was linked to Deborah Fleming. Okay, I didn't know that. Okay, it's linked to the blood of the children via the research, okay, and the crimes against the children via all of this information, this evidence. So anyway, we ended up going to the church. Now, Barry then sadly, apparently died. Now, I'm even having to consider this is the level that they're going to, because I believe they're faking deaths, okay. And he apparently died in 2000, and I think it was 2020 or 21, I can't remember. And my wife and his wife gave me this ring that I've showed you, okay, claiming it was his ring. Now, he meant a lot to me. He meant a lot to me, and I've worn the ring ever since. I haven't taken the ring off, okay, and this ring, I'll just explain to you how important it now becomes. So they arranged to give me this ring for whatever reason. After I had the ring, there was a certain group linked to the Rapid Response and others that tried focusing on my ring, saying it was a Freemason ring and that I need to take it off, otherwise I'm part of the criminal system. And I'm thinking, no, why would I take them? Even if it is a Freemason ring, I've got evidence it's not. Why would I take the ring off? I'm wearing it for the reason I loved Barry and I cared for him, and that's the only thing I've got to remember him by. That's the only reason I had this ring, okay? So I ended up keeping it. Now I know why, okay, why this ring is so important. Because the company, okay, on there, through the company's house records, links immediately to an organisation called Eurofins. Now, Eurofins links immediately to the COVID outbreak. Eurofin was involved in the company that was involved in the testing for COVID, which gave them the ability to take DNA and identify somebody potentially through that DNA sampling. Not only does it link immediately to my ring through that organisation, it connects to Eurofins, connects immediately to the person that introduced me to my wife. Okay, it connects immediately to the intelligence agencies from 3 different angles of my research. It connects to an organisation called McCorkle Limited. McCorkle is the name of the person they used to create a fake non-molestation order involving my wife to stop me having contact from my wife anymore. Now, it's almost certain that she will be being told exactly what to do as part of all of this. She will be being manipulated and controlled to be part of this deception and be part of whatever it is. So it also connects, where else? I haven't got it in front of me, so I can't remember. There's other key connections. So I'm going to have to, without telling you wrong information, I'm going to forget what else it is. So that is immediately from my ring. When you go in through the company, you then hit the Vatican. Literally a Roman Catholic company, okay, linked to Rome via my ring, okay? You're talking within a company or two. There's fraud all the way through it. It links to export manner. It links to everything that I'm telling you about via this ring. That also means when I put that H G dot and T, I think it is. I can't see it at the moment because it's too small. I've got it written down. And I put the Vatican. It ties into a document that was created linking in with the discrepancies within the Vatican, okay? Talking about how the Vatican is going to integrate with modern man and modern society, okay? Straight from my ring. It also connects to a document linked to H.G. Wells, tying to a document that was produced called The Bloodline of the Illuminati, okay? Which talks about the hidden bloodline of Christ within the in society and with stemming from the Vatican. Unbelievable. So what else in my ring? So that came in. The other bit. So on there's also 9CT with a hyphen underneath it. I researched that. Okay, it came up saying that the T can relate to a company in Queensland in Australia to do with jewelry called not Tantrum, Trantum. Called Trantum. I researched Trantum on Company's House. Guess what goes into everything straight away, linking in with export manner, linking in with everything that I am talking about as well. There's over 5 million registered companies. That's not going to be a coincidence. Now, Queensland is obviously links to Australia, which therefore potentially links in with the Doomsday Cult again and Julian Assange. So for whatever reason, I'm literally right in the middle of all of this. A Doomsday Cult tying in with the Vatican. Now we can speculate and consider what that may be, that I'm going to be some sort of bloodline. And when I look back at my life, this now appears to be making sense with a lot of things that were said. Okay, some of those things, for example, when I was younger, my father made a point of getting me to think about the end of the world. Okay, and this is what people more recently have been getting me to focus on, making me trying to believe the world is going to end. All right, and there's evidence supporting that, and people within the system are trying to make me focus on the end of the world in all of this. All right. Now, there's only a couple of reasons they would do that. One of those reasons is because they know something about me and how I will link in to trying to prevent the end of creation because of who I may be in all of this. Okay. Now, the other thing that was said to me, which is very, very unusual, is, and this was in the last few years, before was it before? I can't remember if it was, but yeah, I think it was before. It might have been after. No, it must have been before. Yeah, it must have been before because it was before. Yeah, because my father died in 2015. Okay, and before that, they made a point of telling me my dad had been circumcised. Okay, now this was out of the blue. This was really, really unusual. Thought it was a bit weird. And then I was told that my mother's partner had also been circumcised. Now this was a little bit later. Now this, I suspect, was them trying to get me to make a potentially Jewish connection into all of this. Now, our family, as far as I'm aware, have never been religious. Okay, I'm the only person that's really been religious, if you like, in any sort of shape or form. And I remember when I was a child, as an example, I would be saying to my mum, who I believed my mum at the time. I suspect she may not be now. Why isn't our nan and granddad going to church when they're on their deathbed, or prior to getting old? And I had this overwhelming feeling that they should have been focusing on the Creator in some way. No one else in my family was ever like that, so I've always known there was something. Anyway, what else can I say? So I've mentioned that. Okay, when you look at let's talk about Gutenberg's. Gutenberg's is a printing organization that links to Germany and was set up, according to the information, in the Reformation period. Okay, and they started being able to print rapidly, started to print material and documents relating into the religious establishments. Okay, this company, as I've said, it was a German company, and it changed the world forever because it enabled the ability for the control of information right back then, even the control of fake information, to lead to an agenda to take over the world by a very sinister group of individuals. Now, that company started, as I said, I think it was in 1440, I think, when it actually started. That organization printed the first Bible. Okay, printed the first Bible. So this gives the ability for them to manipulate and even create a fake tribulation or fake prophetic conclusion in all of this moving forward. So, and then when I've researched Gutenberg on Companies House, a company, I can't remember when it was created, but there is a Gutenberg Limited, I think it's called. Within Gutenberg Limited, it connects to an organization that was incorporated in 2020, was actually incorporated before, but it changed its name in 2023 to, okay, D and A equals X. Okay, so 2023 is when I'm escalating the fraud, okay, the exposure of the fraud, 2023. They created D and A equals X. Again, X, okay, and guess where that links to immediately from that organization? Exmoor Manor Freehold Limited, the company that I was investigating at the time of all of this, okay? So you have the X connection. Someone is trying to tell me there's an X connection again back into me via Exmoor Manor, okay? Where else was going to go with that? So I've mentioned that there's loads of other X connections. Obviously, 2022, let's talk about 2022 a little bit. So early 2020, and then I'll come to some questions. Sorry, I haven't been looking at the questions. A peaceful feeling and joy, why ask me, try it yourself. Oh, I don't know what you're talking about there, but Chatham House is evil, yes. Chatham House, Chatham's where I was born. They actually named it after the former Prime Minister in the 1700s, William Pitt, who was the Earl of Chatham, where I was born. And yeah, Chatham House is where they hold the Royal Institute of Foreign Affairs, which connects into all of the elements of the fraud that I'm talking about. The whole system's centralised, okay, but that specifically makes important connections to the threat of directed energy and the banning of lead paint to allow those in estates and manors to be shielded from any harmful technology such as cell towers, radio waves that were earlier, and radio waves to enable them to not be affected whilst they make everybody else ill through that technology to get them to go into the hospitals to steal their blood. And we're going to come to the blood and vampirism in a minute. I'm just looking at some of your questions. All the publishing houses have become evil, yet they're all connected. All media companies, all connected to the international government fraud, all centralised. If you go and look at Reach PLC, that's a very important one. That stemmed from the Mirror Group, which linked in from Robert Maxwell and Max Clifford. Ask in faith, why owe you faith? Just have a look at the comments. So your evidence for having authority from heaven is a peaceful feeling. Come on, mate. I'm going to get rid of you. Okay, I am not saying, okay, I'm just giving you the evidence. It's down to you to make up your mind on who I may be in all of this. I'm not saying I'm somebody, definitely. All I can say is all of the evidence is pointing to that being the case, all right? There's so much evidence in relation to this, it's massive. And it's not just after I've investigated the fraud. This is going back to when I was born. It's going back and it's tying into the Rome and into the Vatican and into the collider technology and everything I'm telling you about. Far too much for it to be a coincidence. So 2022, in early 2022 is when I started asking questions within Exborn Manor. Okay, I was asking to see the bank documents. I can't remember exactly when that started, but I started mentioning it. And then in July 2022, on the 8th of July, is when I actually approached Anthony Roberts and I asked to see the bank documents, and it made him become quite angry about me asking to see those documents, to the point where I had to end the conversation and arrange a meeting on the 10th between him and Diana Betts, and became insistent that I needed to see the documents, needed to see the bank documents, because I was a director for the company at this point. He then resigned on the 13th. Well, if you go back a few days, on the 5th of July, apparently CERN, the Large Hadron Collider, was involved in an experiment on the 5th of that month for the first time in 3 years, which would take you back to July 2019, which is when Jeffrey Epstein was arrested and when a protest took place regarding an incinerator plant in Wuhan in China. Okay, that was in July 2019, and in August, Jeffrey Epstein supposedly died in prison, and they erected cell towers within Wuhan in China in that month. Okay, it was then obviously the outbreak began in Wuhan in December. That's not going to be a coincidence, everybody. Anyway, this experiment took place at CERN on the 5th of July 2022. The day afterwards, the Georgia Guidestones were damaged and removed. Okay, remember they were set up in 1980, the same year that Tim Berners-Lee was working at CERN, and he created the World Wide Web for CERN in 1989. Okay, which becomes very, very relevant to all this. And I've already told you about the links into CERN, which ties back into me personally in all of this. So then, so that was where we're going, 2022. That same month, July, okay, is when Elon Musk's brother, Kimball, bought a drone company. All right, this then links in with all of the drones, seeing it around the world in 2024. I haven't got all of the dates here, so I'm trying to remember this. So July, I'm obviously trying to find out what's going on with the Exborn Manor at this point. I call meetings to try and remove people. They set up a staged document, fake document. They try and threaten me via a veiled threat during a meeting to see if I will stop. Obviously I didn't. And this was in 2022. And then, of course, in September 2022, the Queen suddenly supposedly dies on the 8th of September. There's some key things that happened just before that, such as on the 6th of September, you have a member of the Goldsmith family called Zach Goldsmith. He marries a member of the Fleming family. That's not a coincidence, everybody. 2 days before the Queen supposedly dies. Okay, so she dies 2nd of September, supposedly. I don't think she did. I'm obviously escalating everything at this point, trying to find out what's going on. I start separating from the home address, really realizing how big this is. In November, or end of October, the Halloween time, Elon Musk wears a Baphomet to a Halloween party. The Baphomet is the symbol of the Church of Satan, which ties into all of this evidence. He also that year started to acquire Twitter to become X. Okay, and if you notice, everything about him is X. You've got SpaceX, other X's. I believe that is a reference to the bloodline of Christ. The Elon Musk, okay, is linked directly to Stephen Hawking via a Company's House document by the exact same name called Nigel Leonard Blood. If you go and type in Stephen Hawking's Company's House, look at one of his companies. I think it's called Time and Space something. Okay, go and look at the incorporation document in the filing history. You'll see Nigel Leonard Blood. Okay, that has an address of 84 Temple Chambers, Temple Avenue, that connects to my dream. All right, that links to my families, that links to McDonald's restaurant and loads of other stuff that ties into all of this. Okay, that Nigel Leonard Blood is also on the incorporation document for Elon Musk company that connects to Jesus Copyright Limited immediately. Jesus Copyright Limited links to Stephen Hawking immediately, links to my dreams, links to my families, and links to CERN, because Stephen Hawking was involved in trying to get CERN to create a black hole on Earth according to the research. He studied the thesis of the expansion of the universe. okay, which links to 1966, the establishment or foundation of the Church of Satan. All right, and he was studying that at Oxford University, in Cambridge University. In 1971, Stephen Hawking came out with the theory of Hawking radiation. That's the same year that the World Economic Forum began, everybody. And within 3 days of me sending my evidence to the World Economic Forum, the FBI, NATO, and United Nations, the chair of the World Economic Forum ended up stepping down, was announcing that he was stepping back as the chair. He then actually resigned on the exact same day that the Pope died in early 2025, tying in with the Vatican again and in with the popes, everybody. Just quickly, because I'm not going to be too long because my hands are freezing. If you don't hear from me again, you know that they've got something arranged at my tent, and I don't know what's going to be there, but obviously I need to do something tonight. So I'm going to go back there, okay, and to see what happens. What else was I going to say? Let's talk about vampirism. So in 1920, a member of a Fleming family, which I suspect will be the same Fleming family, married a member of the Lloyd family that I suspect will relate to Lloyd's Bank. Okay, as part of my inquiries, I ended up acquiring forged Lloyd's Bank documents produced by the Treasury Department of Lloyd's Bank, and Lloyd's Bank is on page 40 of the incorporation document for the Royal Foundation of the Prince and Princess of Wales that connects to my upbringing. Remember, it has Ingenious Film Partners. It also has Lloyd's Bank companies. When I was a child, one of my friends, who I believe has French origin, okay, his dad worked at Lloyd's Bank, and I remember him taking me to Lloyd's Bank when it was closed when I was a child. We went to Lloyd's Bank where he worked in Gillingham in Kent, even though it was closed, and I remember it. And there's a reason I remember it, because it becomes relevant to everything that we're talking about, and Lloyd's Bank being involved in the laundering of the money. So in 1920, a member of the Lloyd family married a member of the Fleming family. There's a person called Edward Lloyd that I think is going to be related. Edward Lloyd was involved in the creation of Sweeney Todd and a character and a book called Varney the Vampire, of what all vampire stories were then based on, okay, back in the 1800s. All right, this is what they were all based on, and it was the first time that the fangs, the teeth, sharp teeth of the vampires were ever mentioned. Okay, I suspect this will be the relatives of them because of the links in with the blood. So this Varney the Vampire, it goes back to 18 something, and when you look at the story of Varney the Vampire, it was almost as if, and this is how it explained the story, as if the writer didn't know whether to say he was a literal vampire or it was a human acting as a vampire involved in the drinking of blood. Now this makes sense. This suggests that they were like, do we say that we have teeth, or do we, how do we portray what we're involved in all of this? Now that character, according to the research, loathed their position and their situation to the point where they couldn't stop, it seems, doing what they were doing with the blood, and that character ended up committing suicide. This is Varney the Vampire. That becomes relevant in all of this because of the connections through the writers. Now I've also found today, because that ties in with Mary Shelley, okay, who was the writer of Frankenstein. Guess where Mary Shelley was living, and where she was ended up being buried? In Bournemouth, in Dorset, where my investigation began. Now, she died in Chester Square. This is Mary Shelley. She died in Chester Square, and she, go and look at it, she wanted to be buried with her parents, I believe. So they ended up, the parents had moved to Boscombe, which is right near Bournemouth. Okay, it's right near Exbourne Manor. And they had decided to bury her in St Peter's Churchyard, I think it is, in Bournemouth town centre. Now, it's no coincidence I ended up going and seeing her gravestone very recently on the scale of things, okay? I moved to Dorset in 2006. I only went there in the last, I want to say, 4 years, okay? Maybe 5 years. And I went and saw her gravestone. So she was married there. But they exhumed the bodies, or the coffins, including the bodies of her parents, I believe, I can't remember, I haven't got it in front of me, to bury them with her in Bournemouth at her request. Now, also, let's just talk about the Lord of the Rings in all of this. Bearing in mind, we've got my ring that's now relevant in all of this. So, Peter Jackson was the director of the movies. The first one, called Fellowship of the Ring, it came out in 2001, which is the year of the World Trade Center disaster. The World Trade Center disaster connects immediately into me in many, many ways, into Exbourne Manor, into so many other areas of my life. Okay, from Exbourne Manor, it's far too much to be a coincidence. All right, loads of it immediately. It came out in 2001. The next movie was called the not Twin Towers, the two Towers, I think it was called. Is that a coincidence? The year after the World Trade Center, the Two Towers. The last one was called The Return of the King. Okay, the books were written before 1954. They came out in 1954 is when they were being published. That is when CERN was founded, the organisation behind the Collider technology. Guess where the writer of the books lived and died? In Bournemouth, in Dorset. The creator of the Lord of the Rings, J.R.R. Tolkien, lived from I can't remember the year, but he ended up living there and dying in Bournemouth. Not only that, from the 1950s until 1972, he ended up, bear with me. From the 1950s until 1972, he used to regularly attend a hotel called the Maramar Hotel in Bournemouth. Okay, that hotel is right near the property where Jimmy Savile had a property. And guess when he purchased that property? 1972. Okay, the same year that J.R. Tolkien stopped going to the Maramar Hotel. Okay. When I was conducting my inquiries at Exbourne Manor, one of the directors, called Alan May, owned a property in Jimmy Savile's same building, okay, called the Elizabeth Court. I think it was called the Queen Elizabeth Court, and I think they changed it, but it's called Queen Elizabeth Court. When I was doing my initial investigation, Alan May, that director who owns a property there, arranged a meeting in the Miramar Hotel because he had connections to that hotel going back, he claimed. The same hotel where J.R. Tolkien would go to, okay? Now, that building where Alan May had a property, and so did somebody else from Exbourne Manor, as I've said, it's where Jimmy Savile lived from 1972 until he died, and he had a property there from 72 until he died, and then it links immediately to Exbourne Manor via the company Sounds Records. Immediately. Not only does it link to Exbourne Manor, it links immediately to JFK's family. John F. Kennedy's family connects immediately to that building via the company Sounds Records. When you go in through the building, you then make loads of links to royalty. Okay, it connects all into Jimmy Savile, everybody. So I'm not going to do much more. So I'm just going to come to any questions. Once we have truth, justice, and judgment, someone puts survivors of crimes will be able to really find the inner peace, hence the temple. I know who you are, Gary. I feel it. Yeah, I don't know for sure. It's certainly looking like so if not, then they're really trying to make me believe that I am. Someone within the system is they're putting the information there before I even knew about all of this. It's going back before, to when I was born, all of this. So, it's huge. I understand how unbelievably huge it is, what I'm saying. Obviously, I wouldn't be saying it if I didn't have vast amount of evidence to suggest that's the case. And then you've got to look at the dreams and where they led in all of this. And okay, I'm just going to go over one of those significant as well. So in end of 2024, someone told me about the Ninth Circle linking to the hunting of children, linking with the Vatican and the royal family. I hadn't heard of the Ninth Circle before. I went to sleep that night or the night afterwards, and I had a dream that I was in a McDonald's restaurant, and there was Ronald McDonald, a clown, okay? Never had a dream about McDonald's in my life. It woke me up at 4 5 in the morning, so I had a sudden overwhelming feeling of deception. I was completely content and happy until a sudden overwhelming feeling of deception being in this McDonald's restaurant. I didn't really know why. Didn't think too much of it. Thought I'll research the Ninth Circle. Ninth Circle, straight away it came up with Art the Clown, the very first article. Art the Clown, who was a character in a movie called The Ninth Circle. That movie came out in 2008, the same year that the Large Hadron Collider was first activated, the same year after I was introduced to Expo Manor, and between the year afterwards is when Angels and Demons linking to the Vatican and to the CERN movie came out as well. Remember, the first movie was about a deception within Christianity, the Da Vinci Code, about the hidden bloodline that stems back to the church where this originated in France. Anyway, so we now had the Ninth Circle linking to a clown. This prompted me to research McDonald's, and I found loads of evidence tying into McDonald's. Then I thought, okay, I wonder what happens when I research CERN and the Ninth Circle. And straight away, the first thing that came up, now it was AI, and I do not condone AI, and I'm not an advocate of AI, and I think we need to stop it immediately. However, the article came out and said that technicians at CERN call a problem with the technology the Ninth Circle or hell. Okay, so that suggests that my dream was now linking in with a potentially catastrophic event, whether deliberately or accidentally, in relation to the pursuance of science using the collider technology, or even that being used towards deliberately ending all of creation, as I said earlier, through the research. Then, as I continued my evidence gathering, I established an organisation called the Keller Group, and Keller Group PLC, and I established that via working out and finding who was in charge of the Swiss Confederation, and they positioned somebody called something, I can't remember the other part of her name, but she's got Keller in her surname. She was positioned on the 1st of January 2025 as I was continuing to expose the fraud, okay, and she became the head of the Swiss Confederation, surname of Keller. Around the same time, I found out about the statue. Well, I'd found out about it before, but I researched the statue in Bern, the capital of Switzerland, which represents eating babies, because I had evidence of babies being eaten and sacrificed, and all the blood of the children and all of this linking in with it. Anyway, turns out the Keller Group PLC created the control panel for the Large Hadron Collider at CERN, which is in Geneva in Switzerland. Unbelievable. Not only that, Keller Group PLC was incorporated in 1989, I believe, the same year that the World Wide Web was created for CERN. And guess what's on the incorporation document? 84 Temple Chambers, Temple Avenue, I believe, the address which links to my dream and links to everything that I've just told you about. Nigel Leonard Blood, which then links back into Stephen Hawkins and into Elon Musk. Now, I'm sorry, this is just... there's too much here with all of this. There is just too much evidence, and I'm only telling you a snippet of the latest evidence that I'm trying to pin together in all of this. Let me just have a look at the information, the questions. I found Gary years ago when he first started his investigation. He is the real deal. Thanks, Truth Teller. Look, I don't say anything unless I've got verifiable evidence through a chain of evidence. For whatever reason, they've left a trail of evidence, okay, for the right person to expose it. For whatever reason, I think we're getting the idea why I seem to be the right person to expose it. And what I mean by they've left it, they could have forged, okay, the incorporation documents better than they forged them. They could have forged the register better than they have. They've done it in a way that it's identifiable. And it looks as though they started to potentially do it in 1992 when they started to create the electronic register for the Companies House Records. Well, that's the same year that the Catholic Church became a legal entity, everybody. My hands are actually numb, so I'm probably going to have to go now. If you don't hear from me again, you know they've got rid of me. If something's going on at my tent, I don't know. But I've submitted a police report. It's now going public. It's on my... I've put the reference number. It's on my Telegram channel. I mean, they're all compromised. YouTube's compromised as well. I don't even know if I'm getting through to any innocent people. I can hope I am. But I've put it all over my social media as well. And what else was I going to say? that's it. So there's just so much more that I can't remember from last night. Some of the other evidence that I was speaking about. Let me just have a little think if there's anything else significant. But I am freezing, so I'm probably going to have to go because I don't want my hands to get too numb. So thanks very much, everyone. Oh, let me just have a little look at the questions. Have you seen the video of the sacrifice outside of CERN? Yeah, took place supposedly in August 2016. That's the same year that Inferno, the third movie, came out. And Inferno refers to Dante's Inferno. Dante's Inferno also links back into CERN. So yeah, this ritual supposedly took place outside of the Shiva statue, which represents creation, expansion of the universe, and destruction. Contraction of the universe for a point of singularity or a black hole. Took place in August 2016, supposedly. They're claiming it was a hoax. Within 3 months after that, there's people saying that there's earthquakes being caused by CERN. All right, they come out with an article saying that it's not CERN. They get 2 seismic specialists to come in. Both of those seismic specialists I have linked into the international government fraud and back into Exmoor Manor. Okay, probably not even real people. So they probably made up these names. Said that they conducted a seismic activity test. The company, the newspaper that published that information, links immediately to Klaus Schwab, who was the head of the World Economic Forum, the chair. And it links to Exmoor Manor again. Someone's put vampirism, Vlad the Impaler creating fear for blood, anti-aging direct lineage Charles. Yeah, absolutely. Fear-based adrenochrome linking to snuff films made. Hunter S. Thompson linking to I don't know about that. I'll screenshot that. Thanks very much, Chris Lucy. That Thompson connection you mentioned is going to be very relevant because the Krays were associated with the Thompson family, which is heavily linked in with the blood of the children in all of this, according to all of my research. So that's very likely going to be very significant. Hunter S. Thompson, thank you very much for that. It's interesting what you say there. You're right about the lineage of Charles. He came out, the article started, the oldest one that I can find is 2 days before Jimmy Savile died. He died on the 29th of October. No, it might have been the 30th. I can't remember. But it was, I think it was the 27th of October 2011 is the first article where it comes out that Charles is connected to Vlad the Impaler. And I've done all of the research around that in my document as well. Their lies are falling apart just like their control over us walk in the faith. Yeah, absolutely. 100% everybody, you really do need to be following in faith in this, in the creator through the moral conscience, but that doesn't mean you sit back and do nothing. All right, if you don't do anything about this, all of my evidence suggests there's everything at stake. Have I caught this live? It's dark here. Yes, this is live. Yes, it's live. Someone's put that, yeah. So I'm a bit behind on the comments. She was a lizard. I don't believe anyone that's mentioning the lizard stuff. I'm going to suspect you're compromised. It's obviously a deception. The evidence is overwhelming that the lizard side of things is a deception. So it's overwhelming evidence, everybody. And because what that would do is enable them to try and explain away the crimes and the blood of the children. It's not going to work. This is about people that are scared of dying, it looks like, that have created the ability to extend their lives through the harvesting of the blood and the organs from the innocents around the world. And it appears as though the whole system, that is predominantly why it's been set up to do that, and how that also then links in with the falsified prophecies in all of this. And yes, somebody's put Elon Musk's son is X. Yeah, absolutely. Even called his son X. Thank you very much for that, Crikey. 6979. Thank you very much. Gary, you have blown my brother and myself away today. We think what you... Oh, thank you so much. It's just mind-blowing, isn't it, everyone? You know, like I've said to you, Lee Elliott, earlier, I honestly have evidence supporting everything I'm saying overwhelmingly. There's no coincidence that there's 50 police reports roughly I've submitted that all have reference numbers. They are all being completely ignored. All of the emails to my MP, completely ignored. They're all involved, everybody. All right? They're all involved. They're all compromised by this. Whether it's the finances, the drugs, the sex, the blood. Of course they are in the need to curb national... Of course they are in the need, bro. Sorry, of course they are in the need, bro. Club, arm of the international ring. It's not recorded, it's live. Yeah, this is just a live, it's not recorded. But it does automatically re-upload, I think. I don't know if I'm going to still be here after tonight based on what that compromised person said. They might have something arranged for me, possibly. Very same thing happened to me. I was targeted for knowing more than I should. Yeah, absolutely. Stay strong, Gary. We pray for you. Thank you very much. is that Daleen? Thank you very much. 0 Point Energy. Are they all involved? Many people are involved. Many of them will be compromised. Many of them will be wanting to stop what they're doing, but they can't. Whether that's because they're being coercively controlled. I think a big element of it is this blood. I really think it's a huge element of it. Look at what I just said about Varney the vampire. Okay, this is a bit sounds childish saying that, doesn't it? But this is part of this, everybody, right? Where he was loathing himself but couldn't stop what he was doing with the blood. That appears to be a big element in all of this. And I do think a fear of death is probably a huge element in this. And they established a way, according to all of the research I've got, to extend their lives using the blood of the innocents and using the organ harvesting transplants. And this would explain why you've got the NHS massively implicated in this, worldwide health authorities, all right, giving them the ability to take the blood from the innocents, by create the illnesses first of all, deliberately. Okay, that I'm almost guaranteeing you this is what they're doing, through the technology, through the water, through the food, through the air. But I think the actual technology is a huge element of that, creating the illnesses, which then makes you go into the healthcare system, which then means they take the blood from you. All right, and of course there's no motive to save your life. There's a motive to actually not save your lives, okay, because of the organ harvesting element of this. This is why you're starting to get evidence now of undertakers being involved in fake cremations and fake burials. You might have seen it on the news recently. It's on there. Okay, they've all been centralised to this criminal network. And this is why I suspect you've got the likes of John O'Looney, who's part of the deception in the criminal network. I'm not saying he's involved in organ harvesting, but we have to consider it. He links immediately to the paedophile information exchange in the World Trade Center disaster via John O'Looney's company. And I know it's his company. He's told me it's his company. All right, it's an undertaker's firm. And then you've got another undertaker who's recently supposedly been prosecuted for fake funerals. Organ harvesting. I've got Jill, I need to go. I've got to go back to my tent because there's stuff in there that I need to get as well. So, and you know, if it was earlier in the day, then maybe, but at the end of the day, if they get rid of me, they get rid of me, and I'm not scared. I've done the right thing. I'm on the right side in all of this, and I know this is all coming straight back at them. So if they're going to do something to me, then that's up to them. What happened to Robert Maxwell's staff? I don't know what you mean by staff. Sorry. I believe that the sacrifice at CERN seemed to be taking place in front of the Shiva statue. Yeah, it was. And the Shiva statue is an Indian goddess representing creation and destruction. Let us know tomorrow if you're still okay, Gary. Yes, I will do, crikey. Thank you very much. Be live when you get there. Get close to your tent. Then we can all see. Yeah, that's a good idea, Lisa. Yes, that's a very good idea. Yes, I will do that. The trouble is, obviously, I'm going to be there. You know, I'm not going to be wanting to move on tonight, to be honest with you. So I'm going to be there probably for the night. I don't know. I'll think about it. Put camera to your side so we can see. Yeah. That is a good idea. Thank you very much, Lisa. Yeah, being my witnesses. Yeah, absolutely. They all know each other, but how do you prove it? Well, look, they're all involved in conspiring to allow international fraud. The entire system can be arrested. All right, anyone involved in governmentary positions, if they can't prove they're trying to resolve this, after I've been submitting emails to 650 members of parliament and councillors and submitted 50 police reports, they're all guilty of conspiring to allow fraud to continue. It's a very broad offence. The people could prosecute the whole lot involved in this unless they can provide proof that they have been involved, have been trying to stop it. Gary, can you read Lisa's comments? Yes, I did. Hopefully I've read it out now. So I'm a bit behind on the comments. We think you should go live, Nick. Yes, thank you very much, Creepy. Appreciate that. We've also worked on here and states in this. Carried away. I don't think Gary liked it when someone was specific about his living arrangements. I don't mind. No, if people can talk about my living arrangements. I don't mind that. Living in a tent. I've been in a tent since the 1st of October. I go back on the Qatari hour later. Ireland, yeah, this is worldwide, everybody. Ireland's very, very important. The IRA is a deception, right? It was a collaborative deception right from the start, everybody. All right, all tied into this fraud. I've done the research. The Birmingham 6 trial was all a manufactured, deceptive element in all of this. It links immediately in. Jerry Adams links almost immediately into the incorporation document of the Royal Foundation of the Prince and Princess of Wales, which means the blood of the children again, which links into my upbringing again. First hour I've missed, not Qatari. Is Canterbury a witchcraft area, Gary? I have no idea. Canterbury is very important, obviously the archbishops, and Sherborne is massively important. Okay, the school of Sherborne was created a very, very long time ago. Sherborne is linked to the creation of artificial intelligence via Turing. What was his first name? Peter Turing? No, can't remember his first name, but Turing went to that school when he was 13, and he was, I believe, intercepted or infiltrated. He then went on to, I believe, commit suicide. This is the person behind the creation of artificial intelligence. According to the research, he committed suicide, I think. I'm going to have to go, everyone. I'm so freezing, so I'm going to leave it at that. I'm sorry I haven't answered all of your questions. I might be going live in a bit, depending on, I'm going to assess, see how I feel when I'm near my tent. But thank you very much, everyone. If you don't hear from me again, you need to be all doing the right thing. You need to focus on this evidence, and you need to really do something about all of this. Yeah, Tolkien actually died in Bournemouth, according to the research. Someone's put he was buried in Oxford. Well, that's interesting. If he was buried in Oxford is relevant to the Robert Maxwell and Ghislaine Maxwell. That's where they were very prominent as well. So yeah. Someone's put Fellowship of the Ring, real-time Knights of. Jesse, decode Harry, not Gary Potter. I'm going to go, everyone. Lots of love. Take care, everyone. All the best. Bye-bye.